Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we are tackling something huge. We're diving right into one of the absolute most critical and honestly most complex tensions that's shaping the entire future of artificial intelligence. We're going to break down this fierce, ongoing debate over exactly how we build, how we secure, and how we govern the AI systems that are rapidly changing our world. And a recent real-world event actually blew this whole debate wide open again. So the AI ecosystem, Hugging Face, had a security incident. But when their incident response team went in to investigate, they actually had to rely on an open-weight model to do it rather than a commercial one. Why? Well, it turns out the built-in guardrails on those commercial proprietary models literally limited their forensic analysis. They just couldn't look deep enough under the hood to figure out what went wrong, all because the commercial model was, well, too locked down. This one single event brought a massive industry argument roaring right back into the spotlight. Which brings us directly to the multi-billion-dollar question that we're answering today. Which is actually more secure, an open AI model or a closed AI model? We are going to impartially explore both of these conflicting schools of thought, unpacking the core arguments from our sources so we can understand exactly what's at stake here. Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1, the closed model fortress. So, the closed model perspective argues, very strongly I might add, that advanced AI simply has to remain proprietary. It needs to be tightly controlled, accessible only through carefully guarded interfaces. Advocates of this approach actually liken their models to incredibly sensitive equipment. From their point of view, making a powerful AI open source is kind of like taking highly hazardous, super complex lab equipment and just leaving it on a public street for literally anyone to tinker with. They argue that true security means keeping that equipment locked safely inside a secure laboratory with extremely restricted access. And look, the developers of these proprietary systems warn that if powerful models are just freely downloadable, the consequences could be an absolute disaster. If malicious actors get unrestricted access to the raw code, they can pretty easily strip away all those carefully designed safety guardrails. Without those protections, bad actors could automate cyber attacks, spin up highly sophisticated malware, create hyper-convincing misinformation campaigns, completely bypass content restrictions, and exploit software vulnerabilities at a massive scale. I mean, it's a sobering list of risks, right? And for a lot of people, that list entirely justifies locking the doors and taking a closed model approach. Section 2, the open model paradox. But, hold on a second. History and the other side of the aisle suggests a totally different path. Open model advocates lean really heavily on a cryptography analogy. Think about the modern cryptographic systems that secure the entire internet today. Those systems aren't secure because their algorithms are some big secret. Actually, it's the exact opposite. They're secure precisely because thousands of global experts have examined them, relentlessly attacked them, tested them inside and out, and failed to break them. Open source advocates argue that transparency exposes weaknesses way before criminals can exploit them, which lets vulnerabilities be fixed rapidly by a massive global community. They argue we have to apply this exact same principle to AI, because honestly, if independent researchers can't actively inspect a model's underlying code and mechanics, how can they independently verify that it's safe? The source material points out 6 critical flaws that researchers absolutely must be able to test for: hidden biases that cause discrimination, structural security weaknesses, outright unsafe behavior, hallucination tendencies, where the AI basically just fabricates information, severe privacy leakage of user data, and even undocumented capabilities that the original developers themselves might not fully understand. Now, to be fair, even the most hardcore open source fans admit there's a very real hurdle here, the transparency paradox. It's an undeniable fact that while transparency absolutely creates much-needed accountability, it simultaneously lowers the barrier for misuse. Making the code public means the good guys get their hands on it, sure, but so do the bad guys. The source material notes this is a critical paradox that absolutely has to be resolved. But wait, what if we've been asking the wrong question this entire time? Listen to this quote from the text. The fundamental question here may not be whether closed systems are safer or open systems are safer. It could be how the development of AI is governed. That right there is a massive paradigm shift. It reveals that this whole intense open versus closed debate, it might actually just be a false dichotomy, one that's masking the much deeper real issue, strict accountability at the developer level. So the crucial point is, Section 3, the framework for trust and governance. We need to move beyond the philosophical debates of open versus closed and start looking at actionable governance.
Our source material highlights a specific framework designed for compliance with India's digital data protection laws, the DPDPA. This framework, the DGPSI AI model, introduces a total game changer. It makes an explainability statement by the developer mandatory. That means developers can't just release a black box model and walk away anymore. They have to explicitly document exactly how the AI was developed, how it was tested, and definitively prove that both auditability and accountability are baked in from day one.
And to actually enforce this explainability, the framework demands a rigorous developer accountability checklist. Let's run through the first 5 essential questions every single AI developer must be prepared to answer. 1. Who specifically approved this model for release? 2. What exact data was used to train it? 3. Can you prove that training data was obtained legally? 4. How exactly is personal data protected within your system? And 5. What comprehensive testing has been done before you even deployed this thing? The second half of this checklist focuses heavily on what happens after the AI is out in the wild. 6. What are the model's known limitations? 7. Who is actively monitoring its performance post-deployment? 8. What is the exact protocol when the model behaves unexpectedly? 9. Ultimately, who is held accountable for the decisions this AI makes? And 10. Can a completely independent auditor come in and verify all of this compliance? Now, here is where this framework directly impacts you, me, and anyone else utilizing AI. Under this legal framework, the user of the AI software is defined as a data fiduciary, meaning, as a user, you aren't just a passive consumer sitting on the sidelines. You have a statutory legal duty to actively raise these exact accountability questions with the developer. You are legally required to scrutinize the tools you're deploying. And get this, it leads to a truly fascinating legal consequence for the closed model advocates we talked about earlier. The framework stipulates that if a developer chooses to keep their model closed and proprietary, meaning they don't make the source code public, they must legally assume the responsibility of a joint data fiduciary. By choosing to keep the internal workings hidden, they are legally binding themselves to share the responsibility and the liability directly with the user. But the reality is, even with these rigorous checklists and all these shared liabilities, the source material notes that these steps alone still might not guarantee that the AI won't go rogue. Because of that inherent unpredictability, the law mandates treating all AI usage as a significant risk. Consequently, anyone deploying these tools is bumped up to the status of a significant data fiduciary, which legally mandates a massive ongoing level of oversight, documentation, and just pure vigilance.
Section 4. The future of AI auditing. So how in the world do developers and users proactively manage this significant risk right now, while the tech industry and lawmakers are still battling out these crazy complex intellectual property issues? Well, the source material proposes a very practical interim solution. Industry organizations like the FDPI are actively urging academic institutions to partner up and establish independent AI tools audit laboratories. The whole goal here is to create neutral, highly skilled environments where both developers and deployers can make a good faith effort to subject their tools to rigorous third-party audits. It's a proactive measure to aggressively mitigate AI risks today, rather than just sitting around waiting for global consensus on the open versus closed debate.
Which leaves us with this final, vital thought to chew on. We've explored the technical battles, the tricky paradoxes of transparency, and the emerging legal frameworks designed to hold developers accountable. But bringing it all the way back home to you. As AI tools become deeply, quietly, and permanently integrated into literally every aspect of our personal and professional lives, how is your data and your AI usage actually being governed and audited today? It's a critical question, and as this explainer proves, it's one we simply can't afford to ignore any longer. Thanks for joining me, and keep questioning the technology you use every single day.